But if you're arrogant as a business person and you think you can take an old school playbook, or just because you were successful 5 years ago or 15 years ago, does not mean that you can translate that success to a new entity, to a new moment in time. So I learned that. That was really, really important learning for me. Is, and not that I think that I was super arrogant, but if I had any arrogance in me, I've definitely put that to the side, because I think leading with humility and knowing that you know what you know, but you also know there's a lot that you don't know is a good way to lead.
I'm Patrick J. McGinnis, and I coined the term FOMO. That's short for fear of missing out, and it's why some people end up following the crowd when they should be blazing a trail of their own. But if you want to achieve greatness in business and life, you've got to break free. Come on, I'll show you how. This is FOMO Sapiens, where we explore how entrepreneurial thinkers find the inspiration and the courage to build exceptional lives. Welcome back to FOMO Sapiens, the show for bold thinkers who want to turn their FOMO into focus. I'm your host, Patrick J. McGinnis, and today's guest is Gregg Renfrew, the founder of BeautyCounter and now Counter. Gregg built BeautyCounter into a billion-dollar pioneer of a clean beauty movement, only to be pushed aside after selling a majority stake to private equity. Watching her company stumble under new leadership was painful, but instead of retreating, she returned, buying back her brand and launching Counter to reclaim her place as the standard bearer for clean beauty. Her journey is about resilience, reinvention, and the courage to take back what you created. Welcome to the show, Gregg.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. This is a really exciting story, and we're going to get into it. But I want to start kind of back at the beginning. Like, you founded this company, and you created the clean beauty movement. So talk about where this idea came from, how you started the whole thing.
So it started actually a very long time ago in 2006. I had a close friend who had just watched the film An Inconvenient Truth and had become really impassioned with the environmental health movement. We were having dinner in New York, where we both lived at the time. And she said, Gregg, I really want you to watch this film. I want you to be a voice for the environmental health movement. You're extremely direct, outspoken, and connected. And so I watched the film and became aware for the first time, embarrassing. It's embarrassing to admit, but it was like the first time I really realized that I, as a human and a consumer, I was doing things that were detrimental to the earth. And then subsequent to that, over the next 2 years, still living in New York, watching a lot of my friends in their 30s get diagnosed with different types of cancer. They were struggling with fertility issues. My best friend ended up having to use a surrogate to bring her daughter into the world. I had a lot of friends giving birth to kids with pretty significant health issues. And I started to wonder what's going wrong with the health of the earth and what's going wrong with human health and what are the connections. And so I came to, over a period of time, realize that there were toxic chemicals all around us. And that was really the impetus for me to begin this journey of researching and trying to do something about it.
And what were you doing at the time? Like, what was it? Because, a lot of us look like I was just saying to you in the green room, I went to the store recently, like this afternoon, and I looked at all the stuff and I was like, this stuff's all toxic. If I smear this on my face, I'm going to be poisoning myself, right? A lot of us have these sort of insights, but like, what was it about your trajectory to that point that put you in a place where you could actually address that problem?
It's a really good question. There's no one thing. I mean, I worked in female-centric businesses. I had a wedding registry company that I brought from London to the US, which I had sold to Martha Stewart, which we could do a whole conversation on someday about her. And then but you're sitting in Maine where she likes to spend time. I think that so there was that. I was working for a children's retail clothing company. So in 2006 or seven, I was hired by Tommy Hilfiger to help run a children's clothing company with his then wife, Susie Hilfiger. And during the period of time of I was having children, running this company, watching friends of mine get sick. I started to realize that there were a lot of toxic chemicals that were being used in commerce. And it was really easy to get rid of some of those chemicals from my life, in that I could change my household cleaning products. I could switch from plastic to glass. Like I started to realize, and you know this, like once you learn a little bit about something, you start to go, or someone like me, I go down the rabbit hole and I start to do a lot of research. And so I became increasingly aware of the challenges that we faced on the aisles of all of the stores that we were shopping. And when it came to skincare, personal care and makeup products, that was the one area that I just couldn't find solutions. You know, I could get a plastic Pyrex glass, but I couldn't find skincare and cosmetics that really worked. There were these very earth friendly brands that were arguably better for the earth, potentially safer for health, but didn't work well, weren't aesthetically pleasing. Or then there were all the incumbents who I'd grown up with, these large conglomerates driving, significant amount of revenue, and they were on trend and aspirational and chic and cool, but they were filled with chemicals that I knew were linked to the health issues I was watching my friends face. And I thought like it was like over time that I was like, look, someone needs to do something about it. And I guess I was the crazy person that decided to be the one to do it.
Wow. I mean, it is an unusual story because it's not often, I mean, you do hear these stories, but to be able to come into a new industry, build the knowledge, launch a company, and then you sold a portion of this company, a big portion of this company in 2021 at $1 billion valuation to a private equity firm, Carlyle, one of the biggest ones in the business. That is an incredible journey. Now, we're going to get into this a little bit because we're going to talk about what you're doing today and as a result of all this stuff. But you bring in this financial partner, which is great because you cash some money out, I'm sure, and you want to go to the business together and all this stuff. What did you imagine that this business relationship was going to be like? What was exciting for you about bringing on a financial partner like a Carlyle Group?
Well, I had taken in institutional capital earlier on in BeautyCounter's history when I brought in TPG growth and then also Moose Capital. So I had some institutional
Mm.
partners. Moose Capital was a family office or whatever. So they had a different vision for the long term than say a TPG, which is a fund,
Yeah.
as you know.
Yeah, like more patient capital with a family office.
Yeah, it was
Funds
super
have like a
patient capital.
kind of a
Family
schedule.
100%. Like they could have held on to the asset for 25 years and been perfectly fine as long as it was successful. But when I brought in Carlisle, I mean, look, there were so many feelings I had, and I had a vision, right? So my feeling was, oh my gosh, like I'm a woman, I built a business, I sold it for $1 billion, and I am sitting in partnership with one of the most prestigious private equity firms in the world. And that was a really proud moment for me. I mean, I remember the day that we closed the deal and I was blasting this old Prince album in my house, and it was my father's birthday and he died of cancer when I was in my 20s, and I was really emotional thinking, wow, it closed on my dad's birthday, we're going to do great things together. Like it felt really, really good. And my vision at the time was, okay, bringing in a financial sponsor versus bringing in a strategic was going to afford me the opportunity to be the next generation leader in beauty and to take this the distance. And I thought in partnership we would just continue to potentially build out other brands, and then IPO in a couple of years. That was my vision at the time when I sold the company.
I can just imagine you right now listening to Prince, by the way. I love that you gave yourself like a little party. Do you know what I mean? Everybody should,
I did.
when you have a win, like throw on the 80s music and get it done.
Totally. Like I played it on, no one in my house could even be around because it was so loud. But I will always hear that song, The Beautiful Ones by Prince, and I'll remember that exact moment in time because it was COVID. And normally when you do these closing sort of ceremonies, so to speak, they're in person, but for us it was online. So the music was blasting and we all came together.
Greg, when I had my book party during COVID and all alone on a Zoom in my apartment, you know what I did? I ordered sugarfish. So I get you. It was like, I was
One
like,
of
this
my
is the best
favorites.
thing
Yeah,
ever.
perfect. Yeah.
FOMO. FOMO. All right. So you take on the financial partner, you have high hopes, things don't go the way as expected, and you end up exiting the business. And I have to imagine, I'll put myself in your shoes. Obviously that wasn't what you wanted. Like that process of
No,
leaving,
it was
right?
not what I wanted.
Obviously, like
Definitely not.
I'm sure it's a very long story and we could spend a whole episode on that, but just what was that experience? Like, what did you learn from that experience?
Well, what I learned from the experience in general
Hmm.
is, and this I really learned from the person that they brought in as the CEO, is that arrogance has no place in the business world. Well, actually, arrogance has no place in the world. But if you're arrogant as a business person and you think you can take an old school playbook, or just because you were successful 5 years ago or 15 years ago, does not mean that you can translate that success to a new entity, to a new moment in time. So I learned that. That was really important learning for me, is, and not that I think that I was super arrogant, but if I had any arrogance in me, I've definitely put that to the side, because I think leading with humility and knowing that you know what you know, but you also know there's a lot that you don't know, is a good way to lead. So I think that, and I think also just understanding really what you're signing up for. It's kind of like marriage. You might fall in love with the person, but you forget that there's like all the family members that come with that person. There's a lot to this, that like sometimes I think entrepreneurs are so excited about the valuation or the cash or whatever they think that they're getting out of it, that they forget to read the small print. And I think that, in retrospect, I think that there was a bit of hesitation on the part of Carlyle from some of the senior leaders, whether that was valuation related or they weren't sure. And I should have read the signs a little bit more carefully. So now I'm more cautious than I used to be about entering into partnerships and understanding what they actually entail.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, there's that old saying, like, let's sign the documents and put them away, and like we'll never see them. Hopefully, we'll never open
Yeah.
that drawer again. And when you open that drawer and you read that document, even if you read it before, you start to, and then, but you're in a period where you're in friction with your partner, you start to realize, like, oh God, like they have a lot of rights. There's a lot of things that I have to work through with them, and then it becomes painful. And this thing that you've built can start to feel like an albatross.
Completely. I think that there are a lot of things. One of the things I always say to entrepreneurs, and it could be applied to anyone, but certainly entrepreneurs and founders in particular, is just to really think about the fact that, or when that first of all, you shouldn't feel desperate. This is a two-way conversation, and you should absolutely call people whose deals went down in a not positive way, and when the shit hit the fan, like, how did that partner react? Because I think that you need to know, you know how they're going to act in moments of challenge, not just when everything's going well. Because when you sign the contract, everything in general, unless it's like a forced sale or whatever, like in general, it's a really positive moment in time.
Yeah, it
So
is. It is. And the thing that, again, to your point, it's a great observation for those of you who are raising capital. Go talk to people. Yes, the success stories in the portfolio, but also the ones that didn't work out. Because if you look at a portfolio in private equity, venture capital, growth equity, whatever, there's a couple big hits. There's a bunch of random sort of middle, and then there's a bunch that didn't work out. And so, like, that's just the nature of this business. And if you know that, then you inform yourself about all of the potential, like that decision tree becomes a lot easier to like climb, as it were.
100%. And I think that, like anything else, it's like if you're going on a date with someone and you start liking someone, what do? You like try to find out stuff about that person. And like you ask people, like somehow, like in business, like people forget that they should be back channel reference checking, and go pick up the phone, and don't just take the references that they gave you, like actually call other people that they haven't mentioned to you and find out reputationally like who they really are. Which, listen, I did, by the way, and the person with whom I did the deal, you know, is a fantastic person. I mean, you and I both know him. And I think that, so, our circumstances didn't go in the right direction, but I definitely did hear great things about him. And I think it's important always to check those references.
Absolutely, absolutely, and then these things happen in the world, and then you have to navigate those things. So you ended up leaving the business, and then how did you know what to do next? Like, I imagine there was a period. I imagine there was some time on the yoga mat, right? Kind of like de-stress, all that sort of stuff. Because as somebody who took a
Yeah.
sabbatical for a year after I had a career kerfuffle, and I just needed a little, like, I hate the term self-care, but I need a little self-care. But what was it that you did to kind of reset all the cortisol after going through all this kind of difficult time?
I mean, look, you kindly say I exited the business. I obviously that was not my by choice, and I did everything. Like, I remember my younger daughter, Georgie, coming in from school one day and saying, "Wait, Mom, are you sitting in like sweatpants watching Netflix at 4 o'clock? Like, who are you?"
That sounds pretty
And I
good.
think I took, it was great. But I spent a lot of time, look, I did a ton of exercise. I went to therapists. I went to psychics. I mean, you name it. I was like going to retreats and like getting energy work done, like anything I could to sort of rid my body of the anger, sadness, disappointment. And also, I think it's also an important time to reflect upon the situation and understand where you also need to take responsibility for your own actions. Where did you go wrong? Like, what did I do wrong as the founder, as the CEO? What could I have done better? So it took me like, I mean, it was probably about 18 months until I started to feel like a normal person again. I mean, truly, because I'd wrapped up so much of my identity in my work and being a working woman, starting BeautyCounter, leading the clean beauty movement, leading this community of women that were representing the brand and amplifying our efforts and advocating. And all of a sudden I was like, I don't even know who I am anymore. So, I mean, my husband would tell you, like, I drove him nuts for a long time, but it is a process, and you have to afford yourself the opportunity to go through the paces and to feel the feels, or else you're not going to get over it. Because, and you know this, it's like at one moment, there's a moment where you wake up and you're like, I'm good again, but you have to do all that stuff. And I read voraciously, and I tried to learn as much about myself and the world at large during that time, but it was everything. I tried everything,
Was there
you
like
know?
one thing that you found to be like, I remember when I was going through my kind of reset, meditation and yoga, which I never did before. I was always like, it's not for me. Like now I do it all the time. And I feel like it's one of those things that I'm glad I was like, oh, that was painful, but like it gave me this thing. Was there something for you that you kind of like a permanent shift that you made that you feel has just made it easier to navigate the world that you picked up?
I think that one of the permanent shifts, it's not like a complete departure from who I was before, but exercise and mindfulness during exercise
Mm.
became a really, really big part of my life. And look, I was, like a high school athlete. I was captain of the soccer team. Like, I was athletic. I've always been athletic. It was usually a means to an end. Like, I want to look fit or whatever. For me, it became like a way. You're talking about cortisol, and you're talking about like all that was going through your body. And, I felt like my central nervous system was shot. So the more that I could find through cardio and dance and Pilates and whatever, like that became like a very, very, very big part of my life. And that's continued. And when I was entering into this whole thing, I had a very brief moment with an executive coach who wasn't for me.
Mm.
But I remember he said to me, you have to think of yourself as a founder or a leader, as like an Olympic athlete. You need to be thinking about what you're eating, how much you're sleeping, how much exercise, because your body needs to be primed for success. It's not just a mental game, it's the whole thing. So to your point, whether it's meditation, which I do not too well, but I do a lot of breathing exercises, it was a combination, but I have stuck with all that since then. Super healthy eating, tons of exercise, deep breathing every day, you know, and also just forgiving myself for the things I did wrong and like not beating myself up. I've gotten a lot calmer about that than I used to be.
That's awesome. No, I get that. I mean, I do meditation because I have a competitive meditation group where we all have to check in. So that's like, I mean, that just tells you
I feel
everything.
like you and I should be friends.
I know,
I feel like
seriously, it's just,
you're
I
kind of,
mean,
we're gonna have to hook up in New York next time I'm there, because like a lot of what comes out of your mouth, um,
I
it's
love
good.
it.
It's good.
All right, this is good. See, I made a new friend. Everything's going
Well,
well.
there you go. This is the whole point of this podcast, is that we're gonna make new
I
friends.
mean, it partially is. It's like we just need to all get along. So let's talk about the return because not everybody gets a second chance. They have a second bite of the apple, the chance to raise the baby again.
Yeah.
So take us back to you worked through this period of the reset, and then and now you've got Counter. So like, what was the process to relaunch the business?
So what happened was, in the fall of 23, the board came back to me and said, "You're the perfect CEO. We'd like you to come in and turn the business around." Um, And my immediate answer was no, thank you. Like, I've finally gotten over this. Like, I don't think this is a good idea. But I felt a sense of responsibility to the women that I'd built the community with, the associates that I'd worked with, and to the movement at large. Like, yes, I'm proud that we were able to help pass 16 pieces of legislation, blah, blah, blah. All that's great. But I felt like people are still getting sick. There's still toxic chemicals. There's still the fragrance loophole and lack of supply chain traceability and transparency. And so there was a lot more work to be done. And so I came back in, and honestly, I had a huge financial interest in the business still.
Yeah.
So I decided to come back in as CEO of February of 2024. And 6 weeks to the day later, the decision was made to um, move in a different direction. I think what Carlyle could realize at the time that I could not yet see was that the business was really broken, and I had the dream of turning it around, but I don't think we had the runway in which to do that. And so we made the very, very difficult decision to shut the business. Well, well, we didn't make the decision. We were forced immediately into foreclosure, and I got a MBA in all that type of stuff that I wanted nothing to do with. I'm
That's
just
more like a
like,
law
what's the
degree,
difference
by the
between,
way. Just to, you
yeah.
know.
Like I learned a lot, like bankruptcy, foreclosure, the differences, all this
Wow.
stuff. But, we tried to find a home for the business, weren't able to do that. And actually I developed a relationship with the lead, which is Bank of America, of syndicated, the banks that had syndicated the debt, which included JP Morgan and Bank of America. The guy from Bank of America actually called through my lawyer on Sunday night before the business was going to go into liquidity on Thursday morning. And he said, look, we don't have a deal on the table. We're going to lose our money either way. You're an extraordinary founder. You have an extraordinary story, and we'd like you to have your business back if you'd like to buy it. And I was sitting on spring break with my family. My kids were like, Mom, you can't let this die. It was super emotional and really scary. And I turned to my husband, who's way more conservative than I am, certainly financially, and said, should we do this? I mean, I had to make a decision in 24 hours, and then I had to pull a bunch of cash together. So in April, we bought the business out of foreclosure, the assets of the business, and I did it. I did it in literally like 3 days. Called a couple of the people that had invested with me before, took a bunch of money that we had saved and put it into the company and bought it. And then sat down the day after and had a full blown like anxiety attack, like sobbing meltdown, like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, this is
Wow.
crazy. Because it was so overwhelming. But and I realized at that moment that there was no turnaround. So I had to shut it down. And so I bought it, I think, on April 19th. And on May 1st, I made the very difficult decision to shut the whole business down. But I thought the only way for us to start a new company and to like live, to see another day was to let it actually die in the state that it was in, which was really hard. And yeah, it was really, really hard.
And this is April of this year, 25.
2024,
Oh,
last
2024. Okay.
like 18 months ago.
Okay. So you shut it down, and then what happens next? This is so exciting. I mean, not,
Yeah, so I shut the business down. Had to let go of a whole bunch of people. It was a rough
that sounds
time,
painful.
and a lot of anger and a lot of frustration from a lot of people
Mm.
who didn't understand the context in which everything was happening. Then I started to tackle the debt and because there's a lot of debt on the old business. And again, when for those that are less familiar, and this obviously down cold, but when you assume the assets, you don't assume the liabilities. But with that said, if you want to do business with people again, they're not necessarily going to be like, oh, don't worry about the million
Yeah.
and a half dollars. We're just going
That's
to start from
cool. Let's
scratch,
just
clean
start
slate.
again. Right.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. So I had to go literally through pages and pages and pages of debtors and determine who were on my go forward path. How could I? And when every conversation would start like this. This is going to be a shitty conversation. The old company owes you a lot of money. This is the new company. Neither you nor I got us here, but here we are. So if you'd like to move forward with me, I really have a vision for the future, but you're going to get 10 or 20 cents on the dollar. Like that's all I can afford to give you. And so we went through that process over the summer. I took the summer of 2024 to really think about what needed to be true to win again, because I didn't think bringing the old company back and kind of just the same way with a few things brushed off was going to be good enough. I thought we needed to reimagine everything. And then, really starting in September of last year, about a year ago, we started a full court press with about 40 of us just working to put together the technology platforms and the systems. We refined the product assortment. We looked at where we could create a moat around the brand. When we just started building. And during that time, we were holding sales to try to hold on to customers, which was successful for us and to bring some capital into the business. And then we sort of soft launched in June 25th of this year. So we've been out for, I guess, what is that, 3 months? We've been back in the market in a kind of quiet way so far.
And what's so interesting is you launched this business at a different time, a different cultural context, a
Mm-hmm.
time when people sold differently, a time when the social media landscape was different, which is such a big part of the beauty industry, obviously, right? In a different economy, like a lot of things have changed, right? I mean, people still
Yes.
need the products that you're selling, and the kind of value prop should still resonate. But as you think about building this new version, the 2.0 or the counter, as we call it, like what is the big shift that you're making to win in the future?
It's a really good question, and I would be lying if I told you I had all the answers today, because I think one of the things coming back into the market is I I was calling it our season of learning. I
Mm.
wanted a couple months to kind of see how the market was reacting to our value proposition, trying to understand. I mean, obviously, as a consumer and a person who is fascinated with the consumer markets, I have a finger on the pulse of what's going on, but you just never really know. And so, and I really did believe and do believe that we needed to come out with a fresh start, with a new brand, with a new company. And also, I'm different. Like, I'm just different. When I started working on BeautyCounter, it was late 2010, early 2011. Like, I'm, 14 years older, and I've learned a lot. So first and foremost, I think that the idea of clean and the leadership in clean had dissipated when we left the market, and I think it got watered down over the years. And I think one of our opportunities as a brand that genuinely cares about this and ignited this movement is to help set a definitive standard, or at least help consumers understand what clean actually means, because it is comprehensive and it's complex. And I think that the retailers in their own ways have created their own standards and their own definitions, which makes it extremely confusing to the consumer. But I'm also trying to understand, what does she really care about? Like, what's important to her? And I think that some of the things that people talk about are less important. They want to know that they're safe. They absolutely care about integrity of ingredients, but they also still care very, very much about the performance and the clinicals and all that. So from a product standpoint, I wanted to do less product done well. I've said to the team, if you're not willing to bet your job on this product, that it's just not good enough. But what else, right? What else is the opportunity? And I think for me, as I look at the world today, where I think there's a lack of balance, especially as women need to lend their voices to causes that matter, I think where we have an opportunity is building on community, and that our brand and our community were one and the same, and they were a movement. And together, we took a group of honestly disparate voices, points of view, people who in politics would never vote the same way, but they could find common ground in something that they believed in, which was helping make the world better for people. And I think that's where we have an opportunity to lead again. It's going to look different, but I think that I care deeply about having women use their voices, use their time, and earn against issues and causes that matter. And for me, I'm still wrapped up in beauty, because I think the number one asset any of us will ever have is our health. And I do know there's a direct correlation between chemicals of concern and the health issues we face today. And a lot of those chemicals are still showing up in our personal care and beauty products. And to your point, you said this earlier, it's not just about women's lipstick, it's deodorant, it's bubble bath, it's sunscreen, it's shaving cream, it's everything in personal care and cosmetics.
FOMO. FOMO. Oh yeah. You know what's funny about this? I just think as you're talking, because we're in a point in American society where products have become political statements, where like there's like a bank for conservatives, a bank for liberals, and a soda for it's kind of crazy, but that's kind of where we are. I call it conflict capitalism in a sense. It's like, it's kind of like it's very interesting how there's these conflict entrepreneurs who market products that way. And it doesn't have to be that way, of course, but there is an interesting dynamic in your space with health and beauty and food, where people are, for whatever reason, whatever they're hearing from different parts of the ideological spectrum about these issues. They're becoming aware. Some call it maha, but like, as much as I may not 100% agree with some of those people, it is good that people start to question what they're eating or putting on their face or in their hair and stuff like that. So it is kind of an interesting moment to be doing what you're doing.
It is. And I think that advocacy has always been a huge piece of it. During the time that I was building BeautyCounter and the CEO of the company, people started talking about like activist CEOs. We just did it from the beginning. And we did it because it doesn't really matter which side of the aisle you're on, or what your religious background is, or what your race is. We are all being directly impacted by the health issues we face as a nation and as a world. And this is one area, and it was something that I was really proud of, is we together were able to bring people together and find common ground on this particular issue. And even in this really challenging political environment, advocacy still matters, because both sides of the aisle agree that there are certain chemicals that we just don't want in our food, on our bodies, or whatever. And so I am appreciative that through many different iterations of conversation, that this is coming to the forefront of people's minds. We've always been able to draft off the food movement. And I think right now, when you're talking about, whether it's maha or whether it's just any of it, I think that people do realize that certain chemicals, certain food dyes, certain preservatives. You just don't want anything to do with them. And I think that's a positive thing. And I think we're well positioned to carry this forward again and to focus on a few issues that really matter, like things like the fragrance loophole, because most people don't realize, but many of the most offensive chemicals are found in fragrance, and the reason that they are is because the phthalates that bind them to your skin or carry a scent, for example, closely mimic your endocrine system, but also because they're protected under international IP law. Like they're not touched by people. And so it's like a little loophole that allows people to make an otherwise clean product not so clean. And so I just think there's an opportunity for us to lead the charge, but not in a divisive way, but actually in just like, we all do this, we march forward together.
Yeah, people used to think cigarettes were healthy too. I mean, it's like we just need to educate ourselves. And it's funny, like this year I gave up ultra processed foods, right? And then my resting heart rate dropped 10 BPS. And I was sort of like, holy shnikes. When you start learning that, then you're like, okay, what am I putting on my face, my hair, whatever?
Yes.
And it's not about saying like, it's just about making better decisions, which is what this whole
It is,
is about.
it is. And armed with information, people make better choices. And also, like, it's not about being perfect and
Yeah.
crazy about this. And I can't believe it's only this year that you've given up ultra processed
I
food.
know.
So,
It's not, I mean, listen, I wasn't eating that many, but I did, I did like some Cheetos. I'm going to say that.
no, I know. I used to drink Diet Coke, and it took me a long time to give it
Oh my
up.
God.
But once I gave it up and then I go to
Yeah.
drink it, if you
No,
have a
you
sip of
can't.
it,
It's
it's
like, what?
terrible. But no, it is about progress, not perfection. And it's about helping people at least understand what they're putting on their bodies. And I've said 1,000 times, I've been in so many rooms where the person went for a run or went to yoga, drank like an organic green juice, and then put toxic chemicals from head to toe on their largest
Mhm.
organ. And look, you can prioritize. It doesn't mean everything has to be perfect. Maybe your rinse off conditioner isn't as important as your body lotion that you're putting head to toe. But these things do add up, and maybe it's not like food poisoning where you see that immediate impact unless you happen to have a skin rash, but it does make a difference. To your point, whether you're resting heartbeat, you can actually do a urine sample and see the difference in people's bodies when they stop putting some of these products on them, and then they do another sample 5 days later and they see the difference. So it does make a
And
difference.
you're allowed to have it on your birthday.
Yeah, and exactly. And I do. Like, I'm
And
not a perfect
Halloween and
person.
Saints Day, all the.
Exactly.
All right, Greg, we're going to move on to the FOMO 4, which is 4 quick questions, 4 quick answers. These are deep questions, but I'm going to make you answer them, kind of
Oh God.
quickly.
Okay.
I mean, they're not like that deep, but they're deep. Okay, here we go.
We'll
Ready?
see. We'll see. Yep.
All right. How has your definition of success changed this time around?
I think right now my focus on success is more on the collective. It's always been about the collective, but I think now more than ever, my success is equal to those with whom I'm working. And it's not about me at all. It's about how do we all win together. And I think that came as a result of having enjoyed on paper success in the past and realizing that even if you have enjoyed success, there's like the money clears the bank and you wake up the next day and you're like, I'm still the same person. Things haven't changed that much. It didn't mean that much to me. So I think I'm much more focused on the collective.
And that's the kind of person people want to work for, by the way. Number 2, what's a daily mindset or ritual that keeps you grounded?
The ritual that has kept me grounded, and it's one of the things, it's actually, this seems so ridiculous, but it's one of the things that's been so hard post the fires in the
Mm.
Palisades, because that has been a profound loss this year for me and my community and my friends and family, is that every night before I went to bed, I used to take a bath and I would meditate in the bath and calm my body down and go to sleep. And unfortunately, the rental that we're in doesn't have a bathtub, and it's so crazy to me. But we all have those things that keep us calm and grounded, and that was one for me. So I don't know. Hopefully, I'll get one back soon. But that has been my one thing that I did literally every single day of my life.
Wow. Sounds actually a really good thing to do.
Better for sleep, calms your brain.
Cortisol. I'm in a
Yeah,
cortisol obsession right now. Just,
yeah.
forgive me, but I think about it. Everybody is. Number
You and my
3,
daughter. She's talking about it all the time too.
it's a thing. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
I think that, God, that's a hard
I
one.
know. Sorry.
I know that's really difficult. I would probably say the best piece of advice I ever received was from my parents, and I don't know whether it came individually or together because it was a long, long, long time ago. But both of my parents said to me, Greg, you can be anything you want to be. You can be the president of the United States. You can be anything you want to be. You just have to be willing to work really, really, really hard and find confidence in the moments that you're scared.
That's great advice, and it's true. Final one. If you could put one counter product in the hands of every listener tomorrow, which one would it be and why?
Definitively our vitamin C serum. It's not our newest product, but it is literally sunshine in a bottle. And every person I know, women, men, younger people, older people, whatever, people just love that product. It makes them happy.
That sounds so nice, especially when it's like we're coming in, we're taping, it's like fall time. In a couple of months, you're going to be wanting that, but you should use it year round, right?
I use it year round. And literally everyone I know that has ever used it just feels like it's sunshine in a bottle. And it makes your skin look glowy, and I don't know, it's a great product, genuinely.
All right, everybody, go find that product. Now, where can people find the products? Where can they follow you and the company? Like, give us all the coordinates.
Well, all the coordinates. So Counter Beauty Official is our Instagram. Counter.com is our website. Gregg Renfrew, 2 G's at the end of my name, is my Instagram. And we also have a community of women who are brand partners to us who are posting on their social feeds, and you might find them. And certainly if you see one, shop with them, because I like supporting women and women entrepreneurs. And we're also a Goop. We have a partnership with Goop. We've had one for a long, long time. So you can shop us at Goop as well.
So many places, everybody. All right, this is it for another episode of FOMO Sapiens. If you like today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share FOMO Sapiens with your friends, and go and buy some counter products while you're at it. Remember, FOMO is real, but the power to master it is yours. FOMO Sapiens is recorded in New York City and can be found on YouTube at FOMO Sapiens or on your favorite podcast network. Theme music is by Mike McGinnis, editing and post-production is by Josh Elstro, and the show is produced by Matt Curtis and me. If you like today's show, please be sure to rate it and share it with your friends. And as always, you can find more about the show and me at FOMOSapiens.com and PatrickMcGinnis.com.